Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Truth-Unspoken. We're here to give truth, not politics, not religion, not what do you call conspiracy theorists. We're here about exposing what's going on not only in California but in our nation. But a lot of it's coming from California, and we have some actual more data that globally. I didn't speak about this, but a couple months ago I was in South Africa, and what I found out was that in South Africa, specifically in Cape Town and Johannesburg, but a lot of Cape Town area or the country of Cape Town is that they are using California as their guideline, and they're following the same footsteps as us. It was mind blowing how I was thinking, what? You guys are following California, and there was a lot of parents there that were very upset at us,
Yeah.
California, because they're saying you're destroying our country. Our politicians, our president is following in the footsteps of Governor Newsom and looking at California as a
Wild.
an ideal economy. I was, it was just mind blowing. I was like, I'm halfway around the world, and they're talking about California and using California policies as a guideline to implementing the same exact things in Africa. So if you think this is just small or it's no big deal, no. We have a lot of sickness and poison flowing from California, and one of our videos with the UK
Yep.
is going to point that out. How this union is of doctors, which is made of us. They said 200,000, but
Yeah.
it's only about 68 or 69 that are making the decisions. But guess who? Guess who they're following? California. And so we this is a very vital time for our state and a very vital time for our children in this
Yeah.
war of saving our children from these perverted and sick minded and money driven,
Yep.
evil money driven people to take our children, mutilate our children for a paycheck, which includes doctors, which includes politicians, and which also includes insurance companies. Maybe that's the next one we need to do. We need to find out the insurance companies that are paying for these surgeries, that are qualifying these surgeries within 30 minutes. When I know people that have real medical conditions that have been waiting months to get approval from their doctor and the insurance company,
Yeah.
but yet a child, a underage person,
Yeah.
or a person that is of age,
Right. It's $1 million.
yeah, they're getting approved within 30 minutes, and you think that this is normal, this is okay? Like you have an advocacy for someone who needs an actual surgery that may save their life or change their living condition with their limbs or their heart or their many different situations that I know personally. But a child to be chopped up and cut, breasts removed from a little girl, genitals removed from boys in 30 minutes, and the kicker, they don't need parental consent. This is sick. This is wild. This is outrageous. But we're gonna talk. We're gonna show some information that more people are becoming aware of this. But in the medical system, we're seeing a turn uh, of people that are doctors that are actually starting to see and starting to say and starting to stand up, and this is very encouraging. But once again, we need more. It's not enough, but it is happening, and so we're just here trying to add fuel to the fire of justice.
Yes.
That's what we're doing. We're adding coals and trying to pour fuel on the fire to justice and parental rights, that our children belong to us and not these politicians, not these school board members, not these doctors, not these psychiatrists, not these psychologists. They don't belong to you. Not Celine Dion, who wants to make commercials and tell us we think our children belong to us, but they don't. Well, you see how her life's going. And keep watching. Because when you want to destroy the family of God, you want to destroy families, which God is for family. I don't know if you know that, but we've read that in Scripture, and we've proven that in many different episodes. But God loves family. And guess what? Evil hates family.
Right.
And so we have to pay attention and get in action.
Yeah.
And how we get in action is a stay-at-home inaugural with the studentstayhome.com website. In 2 weeks, or 1 week now. Yeah, the countdown is coming. It's getting close. Yeah, a week and a half. On the 30th of September it starts, and we want to keep as many of our children home as possible. Why? So that their money is affected. Because we've asked, we've pleaded, we've went and said we don't want this, and they don't care because they're getting a check. And they're lying, saying it's about equality. No, it's not. There's nothing in equality that spells deceive and manipulate children that trust you to teach them how to do right, how to do good. And they're teaching them lie to your parents. And you can share with us, and we won't tell your parents. And if you want to get a surgery and you feel like you're a boy and you're a girl, we can help you, and you don't have to tell your parents. And legally, that is the law here in California. And so we're here to expose these things. Why? For the sake of children, our children. We're not trying to take away from their education. We're not trying to stop programs. But what we are trying to stop is this curriculum of sickness and perversion and manipulation and deceit, all in the name of money. So let's get into the UK video.
Welcome back. Now, an incredible journalist called Hannah Barnes. I actually sort of tweeted something about it on Twitter the other day, and I eat my words because she's brilliant. She has been really leading the way when it comes to talking about that monstrous place, the Tavistock Clinic, GIDS, the Gender Identity Service. And she's written a piece in the Times today and talking about how, I mean, it's mad this, how the BMA, the British Medical Association, has unilaterally decided, without putting any sort of vote to its membership, 200,000 members, that it wants to now oppose and overturn the Cass report. Now, this, of course, was the report done by esteemed paediatrician Dr. Hilary Cass. And it's important to point out that her findings were underpinned by 7 new peer-reviewed systematic evidence reviews informed by more than 1,000 conversations. And this was saying that essentially that, you know, the idea of giving kids puberty blockers was experimental at best, potentially dangerous, leading to lifelong changes at worst, and then sending kids on a medical pathway who were questioning their gender after being bombarded by all sorts of rubbish on social media, for example.
Now, a lot was just said, right? She's talking very fast, but she's giving a lot of data quickly, right? Talking about sending kids on a medical pathway, $1 million, right? Which we already heard from someone who did transgender, and they live in that life, but they're not in agreement with doing it to minors.
Right.
And she broke down the stats of, I think it's 1.2 million. With the younger they can start them, the more money they can get from them. But when they get a child, or they get a child on this medical pathway, the doctors and the politicians, they see, and the teachers, they know that potentially they can make over $1 million, specifically 1.2 million or more, depending on the age, at least $1 million on each child they can get on this medical pathway. And then also she pointed out social media rubbish. So you have people that are going on social media, probably being paid to influence. So guess what? Guess what that means? Influencers.
Yep.
Media, social media influencers who we think are great people, but they're social media influencers that are being paid by companies to push this transgender ideology of devastation and destruction. And they're luring kids to it and then planting those seeds. So we got to definitely be aware of the social media platforms that our children are going on and who they're listening to, because there are people out there targeting them through social media. All right, go ahead. Let's keep playing it.
It seemed to me that when this was written, this review, finally all of a sudden politicians and various associations all got behind it. The Royal College of GPs, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, the Association of Clinical Psychiatrists, the Conservative and Labour Party front benches said they're going to implement the review's findings in full. Thank goodness. And yet the BMA, who people kind of think that's like nice or something like that, you know, one of these medical organisations that puts ticks in boxes for new drugs. No, it doesn't. It is a union, right? But it is probably one of the biggest unions with 200,000 members. Decided it wanted to oppose the implementation of the recommendations made by the CAS review. That's right, it wanted to oppose them. It's, well, like I said, it's a trade union, not a clinical organisation, but it is seen as having responsibility for formulating best medical practice. Why have they made this decision? I don't get it. What is going on here? Well, let's speak now to Helen Joyce, who's the Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters. Helen, I'm just lost for words with this one. The fact that the BMA, everyone's heard of the BMA, it's got its sort of, you know, magazine, its journal that it publishes, 200,000 members from across the health profession. This proper peer-reviewed, extremely important research, this report into what was a pretty ghoulish thing happening to little kids. They've now decided they don't want it implemented. Why? What is wrong with them?
I mean, Hannah Barnes is a fantastic journalist, and I'm so pleased to hear you give her credit for this amazing story that she was the one who broke in the first place, that there was this secret vote by the council of the BMA. So 69 people, when that organisation, as you say, has nearly 200,000 members. In her piece, she says that some of the members of the BMA told her that this was the first time they could remember. These are people who've been...
So, just want to point out real quick, 69 members of a 200,000 person member union. Think of those numbers. So there's 200,000 people, but 69 people, that means the core of the decision makers, held a secret vote. So what does that mean? I'm sure that the 200,000 others didn't know. They had no idea. And guess what? That happens a lot. So they infiltrate these corporations. Well, and then here's the thing: they're not a clinical union. They're a trade union. So you have a trade union making medical decisions. Big money. There's big money in destroying and taking lives through a medical profession. Big money. How does 69 people control a 200,000? Shouldn't the vote need all 200,000? No, but the 69 know if we include them, we won't be able to get it done. So don't even tell them. We're just gonna do it and we're gonna pass it through. That sounds like California. All right, come on, let's keep running.
Organisation for half a century, that anything clinical, as opposed to, for example, a policy on pay, hadn't gone to the membership before the council voted about it. And they voted about it in secret. We would never have known that there was a vote if Hannah hadn't been such a fantastic journalist. And now there's a witch hunt to find who leaked to her the fact that this vote was happening. And what she's worked out is that members of a sort of hard left group, about 20-something of them from a group called Broad Left, that decided to get elected to the council in order to push for much higher pay for doctors, took this one on as well. So it's basically two people, one of whom is an ex-Momentum lead. One of them put forward the vote, and the other one is the deputy to the chair of the council. And so probably about 30 people put this through. And as you say, it's got this veneer of being like, oh, British doctors reject en masse this thing, but it's 30 people. I mean, that's called policy capture. It's called institutional capture. And it's absolutely disgraceful. So hundreds of doctors are resigning from the BMA because of this. Over 1,000 of them, including dozens who are really senior, former presidents of Royal Societies, which actually are clinical organisations, have signed an open letter to the BMA saying that this is a disgrace, they do not agree, and they want a reversal.
Is this going to have any real-world effect, though? I mean, other than what you've just outlined there, which is medical professionals saying we don't want to be in the BMA anymore, we don't like this shady cabal who've pushed through this decision without any sort of democratic recourse to its membership. Is it possible that this could actually end up changing policy in any way? I mean, my understanding is that the Labour government's going to keep in place the legislation of the Conservative government to block the provision of puberty blockers on the NHS. I don't know where we're at when it comes to people having access to those medications in private practice. But could this actually have an implication now that kids could end up going back to things like the new GIDS, let's say, and saying that, you know, we want to have puberty blockers and getting them?
I mean, to answer your question on private provision, the Tory government put in place an emergency block even on private provision, and Labour has continued that, and they have upheld against a court challenge that block. So it should be really nearly impossible to get these drugs, which is right, because they're dangerous and there's no evidence that they would do anything good and plenty of evidence that they do bad things. I think the two real-world impacts are, one, that it's revealing to people more and more every day, including, I hope, people on Labour's front bench, just how ideological the drive for this medication is, and that strengthens opposition to it. So I hope it'll rebound on the BMA. But the other one is actually globally. People all around the world are looking, and because they don't understand what the BMA is, they're going like, oh, the UK, they were the people who said drop puberty blockers, and now they're reversing. The doctors there are saying that this was wrong. They're saying that CAS is discredited. And all this stuff is coming out of California. You know that. This is a US movement. It was created there and it's exported worldwide from the US. People there just don't understand what you said, that this is a trade union.
Did you hear that? California. Yeah. Thank you. That. So we need to really understand how California is influencing the world in this. So this is not a California thing. This is not just even a United States thing. California, Disney is one of the biggest companies in the world. And they're pushing millions of dollars to push this and employ and incorporate these surgeries. So you have medical professionals that are looking at California globally as a standard. So I give kudos to all those doctors that wrote to the BMA saying that this is a disgrace. You're trying to chop our children up like they're doing in California? Think about it. A lot of people here in California want to argue for that, saying, but other people in the rest of the world are going, we don't want to follow them. Right. But then you have other people that are saying we do. And so 30 people pushed through a 200,000 member trade union, not medical. So the medical, so just to break it down to help everyone understand, the medical professionals didn't even know they were doing this. Yeah. So don't you think that as the union, the medical union, or it's not a medical union, it should be a medical union, number one. But don't you think that they should have alerted the doctors about this? The ones that are in the field, the ones that they want to do these procedures? How do you know they haven't had conversations with Governor Newsom and he told them, hey, I'll have my government, I'll have our state, I'll allocate millions to you if you partake in it. We don't know what's going on. I just told you in South Africa, they're trying to follow us. Now here they're doing it in Britain. And that wasn't just Britain, because I think that whole organization is more than just the UK to have 200,000 members. Right. So anyways, I mean, this is some real deep stuff, and it's real truth, and it's happening. And so We need doctors here to do the same thing.
Right.
All right, let's run it.
Don't understand about the policy capture. They think this is Dr. Hilary Cass being discredited, and that's terrible.
I often try and understand, when you talk about this ideological motivation to give kids life-altering experimental drugs based upon some mad whim that's only become trendy in the past decade or so. And I always try and understand what is driving these people. Why are these people advocating so hard for this? What has it got to do with them? And I don't know, Helen, if you've ever come across an American journalist called Jennifer Bilek. I've had her on this program before, actually. And
I just want to add in, they say she's asking why. Money. That's why. Money. They're about money.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people, what is driving them? Evil and money. There we go. I just want to add that in because they needed an answer.
really doing digging into this on the American side of things and sort of advocating for a follow the money approach. Who are these people? A lot of them in California, as you said. Who are they who are driving so much money into the so-called philanthropy or advocacy of LGBTQ++ rights and trying to actively change legislation? And one thing she's found out is that two of the biggest contributors to LGBTQ++ organizations in America are two people who come from legacy wealthy families who also have interests in Silicon Valley and, importantly, in Big Pharma. And I think this is blimmin' scary, and I think we need to know who these people are in that cabal on the BMA who have captured the organisation, captured policy with this radical ideology that is dangerous to children's lives. We need to name them and shame them. We need to know what their connections are, who they're getting their funding from.
Yeah.
I think that the money followed the ideology, actually. So I don't disagree at all about the need for transparency. And of course, money has come in. Whenever there's an opportunity, money comes in. And now that money becomes a huge lobby and stands in the way of a return to sanity. But it's actually the ideology that started all of this. It's the idea that people are identities, that all of us are collections of things like trans, black, woman, gay, disabled, whatever, and that we have no common humanity to us. And then you get this victim hierarchy, and trans people are the most victimized, and that makes them the most important. And it's a whole way of looking at the world as this generational shift that I think is extremely harmful. It's harmful for children's mental health. It's harmful for society. And that, I think, is what gave the impetus. It wasn't people sitting around plotting about money, although there's definitely money that's come in after it now and is going to make it very, very hard to fix.
Helen, thank you ever so much.
That was so much information and so much stats about what's really going on in the medical system and who's really behind it. The one thing I disagree with the second lady, the president of the Sex Matters company, I think that when she says she doesn't believe that people are sitting around, using money as a yes, I believe 100%. That's exactly what this is about. It's a deception, making it seem, like I keep saying, making it seem as though it's about equality. So if you can make people fight for equality, but in the reality, you're knowing the more people I can get doing this, the more money I can make. And I don't care how many lives it destroys. So guess what they're doing? They're investing. They're investing into social media influencers. They're investing into Hollywood. They're investing into doctors. They're investing into schools. Right? This ideology because they see the return on it. But notice, when they try to send this stuff to China or to Russia, they tell them, if you want us to continue to buy your product, remove all of that. And we remove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's real simple. Because they want the money. So they'll say, okay, wait a minute. If you're willing to give us $1 billion, but you want us to edit this out and we won't put any of it in it, we need that billion. So we'll do it. But here in America, if we say, hey, please don't do that. Oh, you're not giving us $1 billion, so we're going to take your children. That's what this is.
Yeah.
From Governor Newsom on down. He's approving these policies. He's approving these laws. And he's coming up with more and more every day. And think about how people have to understand how investing works. When you invest, you expect a return, right? So that means you have to invest in something that's lucrative. Well, it obviously is lucrative when the governor of California puts up billboards in 11 other states. What are you doing? Yeah. Those states have their own governors. Why is the governor of California advocating and selling and using scripture? Just like we use scripture to expose us, he's trying to use scripture to say this is right and this is just. And if your children make it, anyone that needs this surgery in your state won't let you, come to California. We got you covered. If you're a child and you want to do this and your parents don't agree with it, all you got to do is make it to California and your parents can't get you back from us. But see, in the last video, the one little girl that was rebelling against her mother, which comes out of hurt, which comes out of confusion, a lot of pain and things coming from her father's death. All these things take a toll. Right. But when she listened to the influencers and actually went into the horrible foster system that we have here in California, she wanted to get back home immediately. Oh, yeah. So when she was in there, she learned, oh my God, I love my mother and I want to be back with my mother. Oh, okay, so guess what happened? Some truth got revealed. So there was a lot of lies told to her that made her go into her decision of, I need to get away from my mom and I need to get away from my family. But when she got into the foster system, where she finds out nobody loves you, those aren't your brothers and your sisters, they're not your mother. I worked in it, so I know. You know what? Just to give a little personal into this, which, is some I don't really do, what I do, but not to this extent. But, when I worked in that field, when the house that I managed, I built a relationship with all these boys. And guess what? I didn't ask them, but after literally probably about 2 months, every single boy in there was calling me dad, literally, or papa, dad, papa. And then, they would tell me, I love you before they went to sleep. Now, this is all ages. And I would tell them I love you too. And one of the female workers that was one of my colleagues, she asked me and said, why do you tell them that you love them? And I said, because nobody else is. And they want a father, so I have to be that. And so I'm not saying this to gloat or to boast. I'm saying that was the element that was missing. Yeah. The love and the parenting. And guess what? I had the most smoothest house. There were 7 houses in this company. And guess what? All the staff ended up wanting to come work at my house, which we could only have 3. And then guess what? Other kids wanted to transfer from their house to my house. And so what happened is me caring, me showing them love. It wasn't that it wasn't all peaches and ice cream. These are kids from very rough backgrounds and horrific things that's happened to these children. Some of the kids, their parents would come and just drop them off like it was like a Sunday school or something, and they would just go home because they didn't want to take care of them. So they just relied on the state to raise the children. I mean, so many. So how do you deal with a child that comes home or comes back, and his whole family's driving away? He has other siblings, but they're driving away, and they're pretty much saying, we don't want to deal with you. How do you deal with a child like that? Medication is not going to help that. And so, but guess what? When I would let them know, hey, guess what? You got a family here. And I work 7 days a week because of the need of those kids. And I try to adopt like 10 of them. But there's all this red tape, conflict of interest, and all this different stuff. They wouldn't let me do it. Wow. Literally. So anyways, I'm just saying, that's just a little insight on the foster care system. And so anyways, when the little girl went into that, then she realized, I want to be back home. So meaning what happened was when truth hit, then reality sets in and goes, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was, because I was deceived. And so the point is, you have people that are feeding on that and using that as a tool. Why? For gains of money. So we are in a war. And like the mother said, if she didn't have money for an attorney, she would have lost the battle. So that's what it's come to. We need, but guess what? If we unify and we all come together, we don't need money. We don't need attorneys. We have each other. And so when we take away their power, when we take away their control by using tactics within their own system, then we send them a message by the stay-at-home inaugural, and we're going to keep pushing this until we get however many people we need to create change. Yeah. So we're not going to stop. We're not going to. I'm praying that, we have a massive turn in the next week and a half, and more people are getting involved. Like I said, just 1,000 students here in California, we can make a big difference, just 1,000. And then once they see that, guess what? It'll encourage others to get involved, other parents to stand up and say, you know what, we're not afraid. So anyways, we got one more video. And this one is about a doctor. He's the president, I think, of the medical association here. And we're going to hear from him because he's pretty much telling the world, he's pretty much telling the country, as doctors, there is not enough information that makes this safe to do this to children. So let's take a look.
Top surgeons in the U.S. is breaking ranks and refusing to perform gender surgeries on children. He says he's worried about the long-term effects and says there's not enough research to safely do these procedures. Dr. Stephen Williams is that surgeon, is the president of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, and the good doctor joins us now. Sir, what kind of surgeries are we talking about here?
Sure. First of all, good morning. Thank you very much for having me on. We're talking about gender-affirming care for minors only. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons really feels there's not enough evidence out there to support these types of procedures in minors at this time, in adolescents.
So specifically, we're talking about surgeries like the top surgery, which removes the breast from a woman, things like that, correct?
Well, again, we're talking about adolescent care, and I think that's an important thing to differentiate. And so there's a host of different operations that can be considered as gender-affirming care, and they really involve a group of procedures that allow an individual to become more aligned with their gender identity.
Okay, so why? Why won't you perform these surgeries?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The real issue here is, as physicians, we're driven by evidence, and our care also involves compassion and interaction with patients. But, we have to really look to the evidence when we're thinking about what the appropriate care is for patients. And this is a newly developing field. And for, again, adolescents right now, the evidence, there's just not enough of it yet.
So is your concern that you don't know what the ramifications of a surgery today are going to be 30 years down the line? Is that basically your hypothesis here?
I think there are a lot of things to consider. One is safety of the procedure. These techniques are still in development. And again, this is a new field for adolescents. There is a lot of psychiatric and long-term results that we need to get better data on. And this is a particularly vulnerable population. And again, I think it's important to distinguish that we're talking about adolescent patients. For adults, this care is well established.
How difficult is it to reverse these surgeries if you perform one on an adolescent?
It depends on the procedure you're talking about. For top surgery, it's relatively easy to reverse. However, it does leave scars. Every surgery leaves scars that have to be dealt with. And that's the bulk of the procedures that are performed in adolescents in the United States at this time.
Biden officials reportedly pushed to remove age limits for trans surgeries. Congresswoman Lisa McClain is trying to get to the bottom of that. Why? Why do you think the Biden-Harris administration was so intent on pushing this so hard to remove these age limits?
I think the nice thing about being a physician is I try to pay more attention to the patients and what goes on for what's good for the health of America, and less attention to politics. But the discussions, I think, amongst the current administration were around international groups and, again, trying to get to the bottom of what's going on. This is a newly developing field, and it's important that we have research that backs up the procedures that we're talking about for patients that are interested in this.
Yeah, I think that's the key that you mentioned throughout this interview. It's so new. You have to do the research. You have to have studies that show, and this is such a brand new area. You don't want people rushing into things, and I think your reticence is important. Dr. Stephen Williams, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
So there we go. We have a doctor refusing to do these surgeries. Thank God. God bless him. And then he's also releasing the information, the truth. Of these surgeries are irreversible. Remember the doctors that have been lying, saying that they're going to have great, happy lives. And we've seen the episodes with Chloe and many others and the other young man, that he said that it was pain every day as though knives were inside of him. And when he asked his doctor, what can I do to relieve the pain? He said, put more lube. And is there a surgery that I can do? And he said, yeah, let me refer you over here. And 2 referrals, and both the doctors said, we can't touch you because if we do, you will die. And so then when he pressed back to his original doctor, the doctor just stopped responding. See, that's the reality of what's going on. Yeah. There is no, you're going to have a nice, happy life. All it is you're going to be transgendered. All that's going to happen with these kids and these young adults is you're going to be transgendered into a mutilated person, filled with grief and sorrow, which that is a large percentage of what goes into the suicides. Yeah. Because the reality sets in, I'm a man, but I'll never be a woman, or I'm a woman and I'll never be a man. And now that my body parts have been removed, I will never obtain. The reality sets in after the trust in the lying doctor for money says, right? So the truth unspoken, that's what this is about. Talking about the truth that they don't want you to hear. Talking about the truth that they won't admit to, and that they try to cover up with deceptive speech and lying tongues and professional titles, where you just have one of the top surgeons say, this is not good, and we should not be doing this at all to minors. Well, we need every doctor that knows the same information. So here's another thing just for you guys to think about, is every doctor knows exactly what that doctor said is true. Yep. Every one of these doctors that are mutilating these people that should be put in prison. Right. These people should be put in prison. Yep. But every one of these doctors, they know that top surgeon, they know what he's saying is the 100% truth. So if they know that and they still do it, what do you call that? You call that a wicked, evil person that should be put in jail and prison for crimes of mutilating minors and lying to people, young adults, promising them things that are not going to happen after they chop them up. But once they get their check, guess what? They're going to their beach house, or they're going over to Europe, the nice Mediterranean view, right? Or on their yacht, or they're going to go buy another Mercedes with the money that they used to chop your child up with. That's really what's going on. So anyways, we got a week and a half. Please, scripture. You got to end with scripture. Truth. This is not opinion. This is proven. Okay, Isaiah 59:7. Their feet will run to evil, and they rush to shed innocent blood. That is these doctors, that's Governor Newsom, that's these politicians that support this destructive and devastating ideology of the LGBTQ. Like he said, adults, you want to decide that for yourself? Go ahead. But when you're trying to shift children, this is you. Their feet run to evil and they rush. That's why the doctor told Chloe's parents, think about this, they rushed to shed innocent blood. The doctor told Chloe's parents, you better hurry up because your only option is to have a happy son or a dead daughter. That was their two options, and hurry up and make a decision. Because if not, your daughter's going to die if you don't turn into a happy son. Then once they cut on her and they realized, and they was giving her the hormone blockers, and she didn't like the change that what was happening to her, and she stopped. They still removed her breasts. Then she realized, I'm never going to be the same. So that's them. That's that doctor that said that to Chloe's parents. And the doctor that cut her. Yep. Their thoughts are thoughts of wickedness, of sin, of injustice, of wrongdoing. So that's what that surgeon just got up and he just let every medical professional know that you should not be doing any surgeries on any minors. And if you do, this is you. Evil thoughts, wicked thoughts of sin, of injustice, and wrongdoing. They're plotting and planning wickedness and evil on how they can make it law and make it legal to kill and destroy and teach and influence. Devastation and destruction are in their highways. I've been saying that the whole time. The ideology of devastation and destruction, that's the LGBTQ. And any adult that has something to say about pushing that, you are sick, you are twisted, and you are evil. Now remember, this is concerning children. Yep. That's it. So, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for those. Please, everybody that's listening to this, you should be sending this to every parent and grandparent in your phone contact. And I know that has not happened. So please, and you know what? I'm going to also reference a movie for every viewer to go watch. Please go watch One Life with Anthony Hopkins. Then you'll have an understanding of what my heart is and how I feel about this situation. Watch that movie, and I pray that it really does something to your heart to make you want to act. So God bless you, and have a good night, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Truth Unspoken.